What do you and a small first-century Roman child have in common? That's right. You were both told the tale of the lost city of Atlantis and got caught up in its mystery and wonder. But what's the biggest difference between you and a small first-century Roman child? First, well, better teeth. Second, you will soon discover answers to Atlantis, while the small Roman child died fighting a lion in front of all their friends and family, never knowing the truth about Plato's mysterious island. In Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, the Greek philosopher shares the story of Atlantis, an ancient utopian civilization founded by half-gods and half-humans. An advanced civilization of connected islands and great military power, with cities of gold, silver, rarities, and exotic wildlife. Lost at sea for thousands of years, Atlantis is a myth coated in truth and treasures that many seek.
Just like the mysteries of Atlantis, the online world holds secrets. When you're surfing the web on any device, be it your phone, computer, or console, you're sending out signals that can be intercepted by prying eyes. Imagine being at a cafe, connected to public Wi-Fi, and unknowingly sharing your passwords, messages, and even those vacation photos with hackers on the same network. Enter Surfshark VPN. It's like a protective shield for your online adventures. By masking your IP address and wrapping your connection in an encrypted tunnel, it keeps your digital life private and secure. But that's not all. Ever felt the frustration of not being able to watch a show because it's not available in your region? Streaming giants like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus offer different content based upon where you are. It's like buying a ticket to a movie but being told you can only watch certain scenes. For example, if you're in the US and you want to binge on Rick and Morty on Netflix, you're out of luck. But with Surfshark, just switch to the UK and voila, dive into the adventures of Rick and Morty. By scanning the QR code on the screen or clicking my link in the description, you not only get the protection of Surfshark, but also 3 extra months for free just by using my promo code SM. Dive deeper, explore more, and keep your online world secure with Surfshark VPN.
While many have failed in the past, new technology has hooked more information on the lost world, and researchers believe they have found where the lost city once was and gained insight into the ancient civilization that escaped its untimely demise. How the Atlanteans became advanced may be uncertain, but evidence suggests that if Plato's island went by another name, the descendants of a once advanced society live among us today. So strap on a life vest and set sail for Atlantis. If you don't have a life vest by your side, you can use a pillow or a fat dog that looks like it can float. On our journey, we'll find facts in the once perceived fiction or discover that Plato is history's greatest prankster. Convincing everyone for thousands of years that there was an underwater ancient world of wonder would be a pretty good prank. Ashton Kutcher could never. Along our trek, if you meet a fish person, please remember to wash your hands afterward. They are dripping with salmonella. To begin our voyage, we'll begin where all great adventures do, and that's with a clue. We can find our clue with the man who started it all, Platypus. Platypus, sometimes referred to as the duck-billed Plato, is a semi-aquatic, egg-laying mammal. It is one of the few species of venomous mammals that has a spur in its hind foot that delivers venom to... Oh, damn it, these are the wrong note cards. Maybe Dad was right. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Plato was a Greek philosopher born in Athens around 428 BC. Plato, like his friends, liked to think about the world and ask questions about it like, what does it mean to be human? And who cares if I'm wearing a dress? You have a problem with it? It makes me feel light and carefree, and red is a good color on me. To make his thoughts on existence, meaning, and fashion accessible, Plato wrote dialogues, which consisted of characters discussing the questions that filled his head. It is in the dialogues of Timaeus and Critias that Plato first mentions Atlantis. Plato, through the character of Critias, describes Atlantis as an island larger than Libya and Asia put together, home to an advanced civilization that existed 9,000 years before his time. The island was protected by the god Poseidon, who fell in love with a mortal woman who had 5 sets of twin boys. The eldest of the boys was Atlas, who Poseidon made king of the island. Led by Atlas, the Atlantians, not to be confused with those from Atlanta, grew in power and became conquerors of Africa and Europe. As their power and greed grew, their ethics declined, and by divine punishment, they were destroyed by earthquakes and floods. I know what you might be thinking. That never happened. 5 sets of twin boys? I mean, come on, what are the odds of that? It's BS, mystery solved. Which is an understandable take. But in Plato's defense, according to Critias, he heard the story of Atlantis from his grandfather, who heard it from an Athenian statesman, who learned it from an Egyptian priest, who said it happened 9,000 years before that. Which, if you keep an open mind, it sounds pretty convincing. Maybe the best approach to finding Atlantis is to change our perspective and strip away the idolized mythology of Plato's explanation and instead focus on a real place that could have influenced the story that Plato claimed to have heard. It is debated if Plato believes the story of Atlantis himself, but it is known that some of his followers, such as Critias, believed it to be true. Regardless of the specifics of the legend, an advanced ancient civilization is still prevalent in inspiring the story. Perhaps Plato was off on the Poseidon part, but stories of a lost society of half humans, half otherworldly beings still spark intrigue, and the legend of Atlantis has been a perfect catalyst for thousands of years of investigation. After Columbus brought news of the New World back to Europe, many claimed that America was the fabled Atlantis. In the 19th century, several researchers suggested that ancient Mayan hieroglyphs spoke of a lost continent. Therefore, the site might be near Mexico. The theory suggests that the Mayans had interacted with the ancient Egyptians, who in turn passed it on to the ancient Greeks. In 2004, a Swedish geographer proposed that Atlantis wasn't near the Mediterranean, but was in fact Ireland, suggesting that the size of the Emerald Isle aligns with Plato's estimate and the destruction myth was inspired by the submerging of the North Sea shoal around 6100 BC. The most famous search that made the speculation of Atlantis as popular as it is today comes from the former U.S. Congressman Ignatius L. Donnelly in 1882. Donnelly, a staunch Atlantis truther, published Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, attempting to locate Atlantis from historical writings. Donnelly hypothesized an advanced civilization whose immigrants populated much of ancient Europe, Africa, and the Americas, and whose heroes inspired Greek, Hindu, and Scandinavian mythologies. We can only hope that today's Congress puts their differences aside and takes on Bigfoot next. All of the different theories of Atlantis' potential location throughout the world disregard a crucial factor in Plato's story, which is Plato saying exactly where Atlantis is. Plato said, "For the ocean there was at that time navigable, for in front of the mouth which you Greeks call, as you say, the Pillars of Heracles, that is Hercules, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together." This indicates that Plato was referring to the Straits of Gibraltar at the mouth of the Mediterranean. This is great news for our expedition. It turns out that knowing exactly where something is makes the search for it super easy. However, the question then arises of how one would go about finding an ancient world that is known for its iconic destruction. The emerging practice of ocean science in 1931 led to the pioneering of underwater archaeology as the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute combed the seafloor by using deep-sea acoustic soundings to scrape off the top dressing to look for artifacts and signs of an ancient metropolis. If we take practices of combing the seafloor, look at the location that Plato told us it was, and compare our findings with historical context, is it possible to find Atlantis? The answer is yes. It looks like we were beat to the treasure because researchers have already done this. So where is Atlantis? If you guessed the island of Santorini, you'd be correct. 70 miles north of the Greek island Crete, Santorini has long been speculated as the site of Atlantis. Until recently, Santorini has been merely speculated as the spot due to the pieces of the puzzle lining up. The Minoans, Europe's first great civilization, lived on Crete 5,000 years ago. They were the first Europeans to use a written language and construct paved roads. The Minoans may not have had gills like Aquaman, but were cultivated artisans and skilled civil engineers, which is equally cool. The island of Santorini was home to the Minoan seaport of Akrotiri. The Minoans built a prosperous city on Akrotiri, But for being as smart as they were, they didn't realize they'd built on one of the most dangerous islands on Earth. Around 1600 years ago, Akrotiri was shaken by a violent earthquake, followed by the Theron eruption, one of the largest volcano eruptions in human history. The Minoans pissing off Poseidon, causing all this destruction of TBD, but the stars aligned for Akrotiri and for the Minoans to be the inspiration of Atlantis. Unusual layers of soil, broken pottery, building material, and cattle bones can be found on the eroding coastline of Crete. Soil scientist Hendrik Bruins and the archaeologist Sandy McGillivray discovered that the soil contains microorganisms normally found on the ocean floor. The only way it could be found on land is with a powerful tsunami that could have easily been triggered by the eruption, further washing the civilization to sea, as the myth goes. However, unearthed riches have been found on Santorini as recently as 2020, further linking the ancient civilization to the one Plato describes in his dialogues. Since its 19th century discovery, the more paintings and buildings discovered on Santorini prove that it was home to an advanced and artisanal culture that matches Plato's description of paintings that represent a paradise of colors, flowers, and animals. They are elements of a highly developed and rich culture. Minoan immigrants and refugees have moved around the globe, spreading the DNA we associate with the people of Atlantis. So next time you're out for a swim, see how long you can hold your breath underwater. Who knows? You might have a little Atlantis in you.